Thank you, Jim. I had a pleasure of meeting Jim again, as Jim mentioned, just 2 weeks ago at our first national conference in Sydney, which was an amazing success. And I was very encouraged by the fact that all the presidents from right round the country, presidents and chair people, were there to actually sort of support the industry as a whole at the national level. And as Jim said, my name is Steve Frost, and I'm the current national president of the stormwater industry. You know, the national stormwater industry really represents the interest of all the states at the national level. And we have a particular interest in the stormwater industry because it is such a broad, diverse industry, from really focus on, you know, the pathway of water from when it falls as rainfall down to the receiving waters, and particularly also, I think, in the eastern states, which is increasingly becoming more of interest, the interactions between surface waters and groundwaters. It's a great pleasure really for me to be back in Perth once again. This is my second formal visit as President, and I've been trying as much as possible in the last few years to get around to all the states to see what's happening and see what's particular interest to people in each state, and it is quite different, it is quite varied. So it's a fascinating overview for me and education for me over the last few years. Mentioned that we had our national conference in Sydney, and just want to draw out a few things. There was a good representation from Western Australia at that conference. We had over 320 delegates, which is a record number, and we had 7 people from Western Australia. There's Bill Till, I saw this morning down there, and Peter Kreshmer, and Brett Dunn from the Department of Water. We had Jeff Glass from the City of Gosnells, and Ian Cocker from TME Consultants, and of course Jim Davies. And I think most of those people are in the room today. I think I had a quick look around. But I also want to thank Jim. Jim's thanked the committee, but I want to thank Jim and the committee myself for inviting me here today and for the effort they're putting on in organising this event. You know, the committee also is worth acknowledging, and I just want to sort of highlight the fact, in case you may know them, but it'd be interesting to sort of just give them a bit of a profile. There's Chris Horgan, who's the secretary. He was here a minute ago, waving his hand. Oh, look, he sort of keeps switching around. Bill Till and Janine McDonald from the Department of Water, Shelley Shepherd from New Waterways, Nicholas Deeks from GH&D, Simon Gray from Rockler, Stephen Duncan from Humes, and Rocco Coutry from Vinadex, Mark Kavanagh from Oricom, and Alan Hill. I also want to acknowledge today, of course, our sponsors, and I'm really pleased to be able to do that, because the sponsors are the lifeblood of the industry, and they are part of the industry. And we, as much as possible, try to integrate and incorporate the industry into issues like this. And it's great to see them supporting forums like this. So we have today we have Rockler Pipeline Products and Vinadex Systems and Solutions, and Humes Water Solutions. And I'm also very pleased to acknowledge UDA as co-host of this conference. I think it's great to see UDA and the partnership in the eastern states. We've been trying to develop much closer relationships with UDA, because I think it's essential to have that conversation and have that collaboration with them. And as many of you know and are aware, the SIA has operated in Western Australia for a number of years, holding conferences and seminars. And I think today's conference is probably the largest in terms of attendance that has been held in Western Australia to date. Is that right, Chris? Yeah. So it's an excellent support from the industry as well. So this topic's a crucial one for the state of Western Australia, as it affects the cost of new housing developments directly. And I look forward to gaining a better understanding during the course of the day about how the local issues you face are dealt with, and how you propose to meet those challenges. And I think I'm on safe ground today in saying how we manage water in an urban context is one of the most important issues facing Australia today. You know, we all learned in high school that Australia is the driest continent on Earth. You know, that's something a fact almost everyone knows if it came up in trivia. And we have water restrictions in most of our major cities, and we've got current droughts. They're affecting all our agricultural industries. And 75% of our land is arid, and with a climate that's really quite unpredictable. The climate in this part of the land, of course, is drying, and we'll hear more about that today, of course, as part of this forum. So how we manage our water resources is clearly critical. You know, when Australia was settled only 200 years ago, less than 3% of the world's population actually lived in cities. Today, we have 3 billion people. over half the world's population living in cities and urban areas. And really it's a myth, I think, that we're a nation of outback characters like Crocodile Dundee, who live off the land, catching and cooking our own food and living on large homesteads, running herds of sheep or cattle. The reality is that we're a nation of urban dwellers, with 60% of us hugging to that narrow, green coastal strip. And depending on which projection you read, our current population may actually reach 25 million by 2030. By 2050, it could be somewhere between 35 and 45 million. And most of this growth is going to occur in urban areas. And Australia really has got a relatively short history of European settlement, and it's really no surprise we've followed and actually surpassed this global trend of living in cities. Now, this urban growth will increase the pressures already placed on our waterways, our aquifers and our ecosystems. And if we don't change the way we manage them, we will see increasing impacts. If we ignore it and keep messing in our own nests, it's not just the environment will suffer, it will affect us economically and socially in terms of our health and quality of life. Now, everyone talks about stormwater as a resource, but to just focus on the role of stormwater as a resource also denies the full scope of what value it brings to the water industry and also the broader community. John Argue, who many of you would know, who's the adjunct professor of water engineering at South Australia University, he recently wrote a piece for the Stormwater Industry Bulletin, where he said, to say stormwater only encompasses issues of pollution management and stormwater harvesting denies one of its greatest strengths, its capacity for purposeful flood control and management. Now, he talked about these as the three pillars of stormwater and how they are interrelated and must be addressed in any practice which seeks to incorporate new principles of things like water-sensitive urban design and stormwater management into the public domain. Well, John's a very, very eminent person, and I dare to add to what he said, but I think there's another pillar, and I think that's the pillar of groundwater management. And so I think that makes four pillars of water-sensitive urban design and stormwater management. Groundwater issues and the interconnection to surface waters has been and continues to be well recognised, of course, by practitioners in Western Australia. For example, in the EPA's Stormwater Management Manual for Western Australia, this interconnection between surface and groundwaters is explicitly mentioned. It states that in Western Australia, where there is a superficial aquifer, drainage channels can commonly include both stormwater from surface runoff and groundwater that has been deliberately intercepted by drains installed to manage seasonal peak groundwater levels. And it goes on to say that stormwater management is unique in Western Australia, as both stormwater and groundwater may need to be managed concurrently. Urban development and increasing population pressures that result need a response from the stormwater industry. Now, all of us here today as stormwater professionals, we have a responsibility not to remain silent and not to remain neutral on the issue. Now, forums like this one can provide a proactive input to the debate on how we provide livable, resilient places for our communities to grow and to thrive. And I like a comment by Martin Dreiling in the US, who wrote in a recent article that I read, and he said, stormwater professionals are necessarily stewards, and as stewards, it's imperative that regardless of our professional specialities, we see ourselves as collaborators on the whole of environmental health and related approaches to development, and without the need to be either a pro-growth zealot or a no-growth NIMBY. So it's my pleasure to open this day of sharing and learning that would be a most useful contribution to the body of knowledge about urban development in areas of high groundwater. And I look forward to meeting many of you today, as many as possible, and again I congratulate the Western Australian SAA on putting on such an amazing list of speakers and topics. So it'll be a great learning experience for me and for you hopefully as well, and a great time of sharing. So thank you very much.